What's up guys, it's Kristen here today with my review of 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. The edition that I have was translated by Gregory Rabassa. I'm pretty sure he translated most of them, but I've come to learn that translators are very important. This was originally written in Spanish, and Gregory Rabassa is a very famous translator, and he's actually written a memoir on translating, and it is my goal to read more works that were originally written in different languages this year, so I've really started to pay attention to who the translators are. 100 Years of Solitude was written by Marquez in 1967, and it is now considered to be a classic, especially in the genre of magical realism, which has now become a very large genre, but at the time, he was kind of considered the father of it. 100 Years of Solitude is the story of one family, the Buendia family, for about 100 years in a mythical town in South America. I always try to make my reviews spoiler-free, but honestly, when it comes to 100 Years of Solitude, I don't know if I could spoil it if I tried. The book is so unique in that there's no mystery set up for it. There's no trying to get from point A to point B or something to resolve. It is a very meandering type book. You're just following them through the decades, through the generations, and just seeing what's gonna happen next. Which is something that I feel like is lost in a lot of modern readers. We always wanna have that page-turning book and the big mystery and the big reveal at the end and feel like it was worth the whole story. But this is one of those books that you really can just sit with it and just enjoy the writing and enjoy the time that you're spending with these characters and have no expectations that you have to figure something out or look for the clues along the way or anything like that, and it's just so incredibly beautiful in that simplicity. And there is just everything in this book. You follow them through love and marriage and death and birth and politics and times of war and times of peace. So in one sense it is this very epic story, but in another it's just following one single family and their experiences, so it feels very intimate at the same time. I was especially drawn to this book being as magical realism is one of my favorite genres, but it's also one that I've always had a really hard time defining or differentiating it from urban fantasy or just fantasy books like Harry Potter. And this book is just the epitome of magical realism. I stumbled across this definition stating that the writing style in which the supernatural becomes mundane and the mundane becomes supernatural, which pretty much sums up this entire book. The tone of the book is always the same, no matter what it's talking about, whether it's discussing a marriage or they're building a house or someone's having a baby, or if they're talking about how the entire town had a bout of insomnia and everyone forgot everything and how to read and how to write and who they were. It's always talked about in the exact same way. The magic in this book is not seen as amazing or awe-inspiring, which is obviously where the definition for this genre came from, in the blending of the magical and the real to the point where you're not sure what is really happening and what is made up. And I love this when the author can just play around with the bounds of reality and stretch them however they feel, and it gives so much more vivid imagery because you're seeing these extremes that are showing the themes in the book. Magical realism also feels similar to me as when I read fairy tales or childhood stories, and I think that's what gives it such a comfort factor and a feeling of home and safety and warmth that I really gravitate towards. Reading this, it felt very reminiscent of East of Eden by John Steinbeck, which I just read several months ago, and it was the reason why I didn't pick up 100 Years of Solitude right after reading it, because reading the plot lines, they did seem very similar. This is mostly due to the fact that it is following one family through the generations, mostly in one area, but there's also the very similar theme of history repeating itself and the generations after making the same choices or the same mistakes as those before them. There's a lot of emphasis in both of these books placed on names. In East of Eden, because it is very heavily based on the story of Cain and Abel, a lot of the characters have a name that starts with a C or an A, and that kind of denotes what their character is like. But in 100 Years of Solitude, the names that are most used are Orleano and Arcadio. There's actually, I think, about 20 Orleano characters in the book and 6 or 7 Arcadios. and they always believe that if you're named after one or the other, you're gonna have the traits of the original person with the name. Which brings me to the only slightly confusing points in this book is that there are so many characters being renamed the same names over and over again, so it does get a little bit confusing, and I found that I had to refer back to the family tree at the beginning of the book many times at first. And I've heard though that not every edition has this family tree in the front, so if you are gonna read it, definitely find one with that because it helps a lot. I'm also very big on endings, and I loved the ending to this book. Everything just came full circle and felt resolved. There is not enough amazing things that I could say about this book. The writing is just completely perfect and sumptuous and beautiful and any other adjective that you can think of in that vein. It makes you feel like you are there and you know these characters. I know this is not the most in-depth review, but like I said, it's kind of a difficult story to describe other than that you are following this family, and it's one of those books that you kind of just need to sit with and experience for yourself. Obviously, this was a 5-star read for me. I am so excited to read more of Marquez's work. I totally understand now why he won the Nobel Prize in Literature, and this is another one where I'm just so mad at myself for putting off reading it for so many years because it was just that amazing. But if you've read this book already, I would love to hear some of your thoughts in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!